Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Padavrajagacharya Asta Sata Shishi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakopna Shamkund Radha Kund Gita Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're in the 10th canto and chapter 22, which is Krishna steals the gopis' garments, and we're on text 33. So Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Prani Upajivanam Su Janasheva Yesham Vai Vimukha Yanti Nartinaha Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Pranyupajivanam Sujanasyeva Yesham Vai Vimukha Yanti Nartinaha Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Pranyupajivanam Sujanasyeva Yesham Vai Vimukha Yanti Nartinaha Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Pranyupajivanam Sujanasyeva Yesham Vai Vimukha Yanti Nartinaha Esham Vadam Janma. Anyone else? Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Pranyupajivanam Sujanasyeva Yesham Vai Vimukha Yanti Nartinaha Aho Esham Vadam Janma Sarva Pranyupajivanam Sujanasyeva Yesham Vai Aho, oh just see, Esham, of these trees, Vadam, superior, Janma, birth, Sarva, for all, Prani, living entities, Upajivinam, who provide maintenance. Sujanasyaiva, like a great personality. Yesham, from who? Vai, certainly. Vimukkaha, disappointed. Yanti, go away. Na, never. Artanaha, those who are asking for something. So translation. Just see how these trees are maintaining every living entity. Their birth is successful. Their behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. So you can repeat. Just see how these trees are maintaining every living entity. Their birth is successful. Their behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. So, purport. This translation is quoted from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 946. So, Omigana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And I was just thinking about how Lord Chaitanya has opened up the storehouse of love of Godhead, and how such a tiny purport that gives direction in one sentence to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and one verse, 946, opens up this whole dialogue about devotional service in this tree of Bhakti Kripa, or which is a vine, but the tree of devotional service of Lord Chaitanya. And so I went, obviously, to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Ajalila 946, and decided to read through this because it's really amazing. And the first thing that this, growing up in America, there's a book for children that's called The Giving Tree. And it's really kind of indicative, but on some level shows the perverted reflection mentality versus the spiritual perspective. And the tree, the giving tree, is about a little boy and a tree that loves the little boy, and the little boy swings on the branches and eats the apples, and the tree is happy for the little boy. And then he grows up, and he goes to the tree and says, but I want to make money, because she wants him to swing in the branches and have a relationship. And he says, but I want to make money. And she says, well, take my apples and sell my apples. And so he goes and sells the apples. He's gone for a very long time, and she misses him. He comes back, and she said, please climb in my branches and swing and eat my apples. And he said, but I want to have a family and a wife and so many things, and I need a house. Can you give me a house? And she says, no, I can't really give you a house, but I can give you my branches, and you can build a house from my branches. And so he goes and he builds the house, and he's gone for a very long time. But then he comes back and he says, I'm really sad, and I really would like a boat to be able to just, go away and sail away. And so she says, I don't have, and he asks, can you give me a boat? And she says, no, but I can give you my trunk, and you can build a boat. And so he takes the trunk, and he builds the boat, and he goes away, gone for a very long time. She misses him, but when he comes back many, many years older, old and aged, she says, oh, I'm so happy to see you, but, I don't really have anything to offer you because, I don't have any branches, I don't have any fruit, I don't have, a trunk where you can climb. And he says, but I'm too old for that. I don't have teeth that I can actually eat the apple with, so it's not that big a deal, but I can sit on the stump. And so she straightens up her stump, and she's happy because she's just giving. And that's what she does the whole time, is she just gives and gives and gives, and she's happy because she's giving. And you'll see as we go through this, the connection with the tree. I mean, the little boy is taking advantage of the tree for sure, and not really giving so much in return, but she's happy to give unconditionally. She loves the child. And so as we go through that, we'll kind of see that analogy. It's really amazing. This whole chapter is just, coming up to this particular verse that we're on, which the servants of Srila Prabhupada indicate by the purport of this verse 946. So I want to read the introduction to this, because this is chapter 9, and it's the desire tree of devotional service. And I think it's really significant in this regard, and some significant points. A summary of chapter 9 has been given as follows by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhava Bhashya. In this chapter, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has devised a figurative example by describing the desire tree of bhakti. He considers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Vishwambar, to be the gardener of this tree, because he is the main personality who has taken charge of it. As the supreme enjoyer, he enjoyed the fruits himself and distributed them as well. The seed of this tree was first sown in Navadvip, the birth site of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then the tree was brought to Purushottam Kshatriya, Jagannath Puri, and then to Vrindavan. The seed fructified first in Srila Madhavendra Puri, and then in his disciple Sri Ishvara Puri. It is figuratively described that both the tree itself and the trunk of the tree are Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri and 8 other great sannyasis are like the spreading roots of the tree. From the main trunk there extend 2 special branches, Advaita Prabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and from those branches grow other branches and twigs. The tree surrounds the entire world, and the fruits of the tree are to be distributed to everyone. In this way, the tree of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu intoxicates the entire world. It should be noted that this is a figurative example meant to explain the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I just thought how potent that was, especially thinking about the fact that this whole thing, the tree surrounds the entire world, and the difference between this and an ordinary tree is it's not stationary in one point, in one place. It's actually dynamic, and it can wrap around the whole world, and it can involve everybody, and it can move, and it doesn't stay in one place. And it spreads the fruit and the seeds. It's just, if you think about it, and as we go through this, try to visualize this, and visualize the arms and the branches, wrapping the entire world and bringing everybody into its shelter and offering the fruit of that, and just how amazing that can be. And so I'll go through the first couple of verses, which I think are also really important in the context of humility. And the thing that he does is he let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual master of the entire world, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even a dog can swim across a great ocean. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is known as Gaurahari. All glories to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, headed by Srivas Thakur. In order to fill all my desires, I remember their lotus feet. I also remember the 6 Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopal Bhatta, and Das Raghunath. It is by the mercy of all these Vaishnavas and Gurus that I attempt to write about the pastimes and qualities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whether I know it or not, it is for self-purification that I write this book. And so again, the intent of and thinking about in our devotional life, how it's always important when we begin anything, even the day, to reflect and then offer our deep respects for the reason why we're here in the first place and why we're able to even practice our spiritual devotional life and give, because the tradition is the first thing that you do when you wake up is that you pay obeisances to the spiritual master and thank him for the instructions and the service and everything that he's given us, and that you have another opportunity to give and to learn and to share. So I take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who himself is the tree of transcendental love of Krishna. its gardener, and also the bestower and enjoyer of the fruits. Lord Chaitanya thought, "My name is Vishwambar, one who maintains the entire universe. Its meaning will be actualized if I can fill the whole universe with love of God." So imagine that intent, and taking that as our life's mission too, of actually trying to fill the whole universe with love of Godhead and what that would actually look like. Thinking in this way, he accepted the duty of a planter and began to grow a garden in Navadweep. Thus the Lord brought the desire tree of devotional service to this earth and became its gardener. He sowed the seed and sprinkled upon it the water of his will. So if you can imagine being in Navadweep, and there's this little garden, and in that little garden it grows and it just manifests and it encircles the world through the different fruits that it bears, and that's the devotees, right? All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is a desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. The seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishvara Puri, and then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. By his inconceivable powers, the Lord became the gardener, the trunk, and the branches simultaneously. Paramananda Puri, Keshava Bharat, Brahmananda Puri, and Brahmananda Bharat, Sri Vishnu Puri, Keshava Puri, Krishnananda Puri, Sri Nrsingatirtha, and Sukhananda Puri, these 9 sannyasi roots all sprouted from the trunk of the tree. Thus the tree stood steadfastly on the strength of these 9 roots. So again, thinking about the parampara, and understanding that our strength is coming from the Lord himself, and then all these roots and branches that we're taking shelter, and again to be humble and submissive and willing to take that position and understand where our real strength comes from. It doesn't come from our own doing, but it comes from the Lord, and being grateful and full of gratitude for that, right? With the sober and grave Paramananda Puri as the central root and the other 8 roots in the 8 directions, the tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood firmly. From the trunk grew many branches, and above them innumerable others. So again, visualize this. Thus the branches of the Chaitanya tree formed a cluster or society with great branches covering all the universe. From each branch grew many hundred of sub-branches. No one can count how many branches thus grew. I shall try to name the foremost of the innumerable branches. Please hear the description of the Chaitanya tree. At the top of the tree, the trunk branched into 2. One trunk was named Sri Advaita Prabhu, and the other Sri Nityananda Prabhu. From these 2 trunks grew many branches and sub-branches that covered the entire world. These branches and sub-branches and their sub-branches became so numerous that no one can actually write about them. Thus the disciples and the grand disciples and their admirers spread throughout the entire world, and it is not possible to enumerate them all. As a big fig tree bears fruits all over its body, each part of the tree of devotional service bore fruit. Since Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grew on the branches and the sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar. The fruits ripened and became sweet and nectarian. The gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed them without asking any price. And I thought this was really significant too, of thinking Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to spread love of Godhead. I mean, the penultimate of every living entity's desire and being and happiness and everything else, and he distributed them, but he didn't ask for any price. And so we should do that too when we're thinking about sharing Krishna consciousness. We shouldn't be asking and making some money deal or business deal. You know, we should be giving from our heart and just, you know, offering everybody the fruits of love of Godhead and not expecting anything in return. So Trinadapi Sunichana Tororiva Hishnana Manina Kirtaniya Sadaharihi. So, you know, being more humble than a tree, again, you know, taking this humble position, and not, you know, offering respect but not expecting any respect. So even that kind of price, you know, we're not asking for. And thinking about, you know, just sitting there and, getting all respects for everything that we're doing. It's that we want to offer this love of Godhead. And when you do that from the heart, without any expectation in return, people are going to be attracted. Souls are going to be attracted. All the wealth in the three worlds cannot equal the value of one such nectarian fruit of devotional service, not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was fit and who was unfit to receive it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. And I'm going to read the purport. This is the sum and substance of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There is no distinction made between those who are fit and those who are not fit to hear or take part in Sankirtan movement. It should therefore be preached without discrimination. The only purpose of the preachers of the Sankirtan movement must be to go on preaching without restriction. That is the way in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this Sankirtan movement to the world. And I thought that was significant too. It's just thinking, Lord Chaitanya was just so compassionate. He wasn't considering. He was just throwing the fruits and the seeds at everybody because he wanted that for everybody. He wanted everybody to experience the love that he was experiencing in the mood of Radharani for Krishna. For people to be open and uninhibited and fully exhibit their, full spiritual potential. And so he was willing to give it indiscriminately. It also reminds me of, in the Bible, it talks about that too, because Jesus Christ was that, talked about the parable or gave the metaphor of throwing the seeds everywhere. And, obviously some are going to fall on fertile ground, some are going to fall and, start but not make it, and then other ones are going to fall on ground that's not fertile and be able to seed. But still you give and you give for the purpose of, trying to bring these souls back to Godhead and their original full happiness, right? So the Transcendental Gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruit in all directions. And when the poor, hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. And then I can just imagine, this also, relates to and reminded me of the Gauravastika in the morning of, Gauravastikam. Where the spiritual master is so pleased when everybody's taking prasadam and everybody's receiving the fruits of this devotional service. He's just so happy to see, and everybody involved in devotional service and partaking in all these different ways. And then you can just imagine him smiling and being so happy because he knows that this is what's going to create their own personal happiness. Lord Chaitanya thus addressed the multifarious varieties of branches and sub-branches of the tree of devotional service and said, since the tree of devotional service is transcendental, every one of its parts can perform the action of all the others. Although a tree is supposed to be immovable, this tree nevertheless moves. So I'll read the purport. It is our experience in the material world that trees stand in one place, but in the spiritual world a tree can go from one place to another. Therefore, everything in the spiritual world is called alaukika, uncommon or transcendental. Another feature of such a tree is that it can act universally. In the material world, the roots of a tree go deep within the earth to gather food, but in the spiritual world, the twigs, branches, and leaves of the upper portion of the tree can act like the roots, which I thought was really amazing. It reminds me obviously of Krishna, who can eat with his eyes and his ears and all the different parts, but in the spiritual world everything's like that, and the tree can move from one place to another, and all in service to Krishna. And again, that it can move and reach one place another, even, and that's the potency of this movement. And Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON is that it's a movement. It's the movement of this devotional tree all around the world, so that it can set down in different places and expand. That's the whole purpose of it. I am the only gardener. How many places can I go? How many fruits can I pick and distribute? So he doesn't want to do it alone. And again, that's the mood of the devotee, is he doesn't want to be, and Lord Chaitanya and Krishna comes with his whole entourage. He never is alone. But that's the mood of a devotee too, is that you're so touched by this gift that you've been given and this devotional service and love that you're receiving, is that you want to share that with everybody. You don't want to keep it to yourself. And it may not, I was thinking about this because, at least speaking for myself, is that I'm really tied to a desk. I do, the finance stuff, or I fix the house and do all the different things, the plumbing, whatever. So I'm pretty constantly busy because it's constant maintenance. And I don't have a lot of opportunity to do frontline preaching. But I do little small things like, reading with some of my friends and trying to encourage my family and, all these different things that we can do. So we may be able to do big things, because there are devotees that can do big things. But if we're doing just small things and we're supporting this process, that's just as valuable, but that we do it together, and that we pick this fruit and we help Lord Chaitanya, who's got all these fruits in his hands, and he's saying, please help me distribute, please help me distribute, right? It would certainly be a very laborious task to pick the fruits and distribute them alone, and still I suspect that some would receive them and others would not. Therefore, I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. And I thought, okay, so and what's the potency in this too? Think about it. Therefore, I order every man, every human being, every living man within this universe to accept this Krishna conscious movement and distribute it everywhere. And so by that potent seed, it will happen. Every man in this universe will accept Krishna consciousness and then start to distribute it everywhere, right? Because that's the potency of the Lord. He has the potency, so he's given some indication of the potential and what can happen. And obviously it's up to us, because when you do receive knowledge, it's really important that part of gaining knowledge is accepting the responsibility for acting on that knowledge. Otherwise it has no potency and it just dies out, basically. So I am the only gardener. If I do not distribute these fruits, what shall I do with them? How many fruits can I eat alone? By the transcendental desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, water has been sprinkled all over the tree, and thus there are innumerable fruits of love of Godhead. Distribute this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Let people eat these fruits and ultimately become free from old age and death. And I was thinking about this. It's like, I'm thinking, we have this fruit. It's very simple. It's the chanting of the Maha Mantra. It's this devotional life. It's service, engaging the body, mind, and soul. It's like this full package. And why wouldn't you want to give that to somebody? Simply, I've got this fruit, and it's really amazing. All you have to do is take it. It's free, completely free. But the benefit is that you get out of old age and death. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? It's just like, wow. If the fruits are distributed all over the world, my reputation as a pious man will be known everywhere, and thus all people will glorify my name with great pleasure. One who has taken this birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. And so, he goes down and drills a little bit. He's talking to every man in the universe taking this up, but at the same time, those that are born in the land of India or Bharatvarsha have a special task to take this. In other words, he's putting down a challenge horse, right? It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. And then I was thinking, of course, this reminded me of the Bhagavad Gita, in that, it's the duty of every living, in other words, understanding what real welfare activity is. It's not, real welfare activity. I mean, certainly human, living entities have a need for their basic needs being met in order to be able to perform. If somebody's starving or in, intense amount of pain, then they're not really going to be able to focus on performing their devotion. So there's some level of, welfare activity, but that care comes from, wanting to care for their body, to give them the opportunity to perform devotional service. And so understanding that this is the real welfare service, is feeding society, this, misdirected society with the fruits of this Chaitanya tree, right? So by his work, thoughts and words, an intelligent man must perform actions which will be beneficial for all living entities in this life and the next. And somehow this one reminded me of, there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, I can't remember where it is, I've got it written down probably in one of my many books but of note-taking, but basically the import of it is that if we do not act mercifully towards all living entities, we basically won't go home back to Godhead. That we have to develop this mood of compassion and being in forgiveness, because you saw that so intensely in Srila Prabhupada. He was willing to forgive so much just to bring, and pull that soul to, this process of devotional service and back home to Godhead. He was just so willing to tolerate so much. Again, toleration, thinking about tolerating in this tree. So I am merely a gardener. I have neither a kingdom nor very great riches. I simply have some fruits and flowers that I wish to utilize to achieve piety in my life. Although I am acting as a gardener, I also want to be the tree, for thus I can bestow benefit upon all. And I just thought how amazing that is that I, just simple. I want to be this simple, humble tree that gives this love of Godhead to everybody. That's all he wants is, to bestow this upon all. And then we come just see how these trees are maintaining every living entity. Their birth is successful. Their behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. So I'll read the purport, which is, again, reflecting on this verse that we're reading and that is cited, which is 946, and this is 946's purport. According to Vedic civilization, Kshatriyas are considered to be great personalities, because if anyone goes to a Kshatriya king to ask for charity, the king will never refuse. The trees are compared to those noble Kshatriyas because everyone derives all kinds of benefit from them. Some people take fruit, others take flowers, others take leaves, others take twigs, and others even cut the tree, and yet the tree gives to everyone without hesitation. Unnecessarily cutting trees without consideration is another example of human debauchery. The paper industry cuts many hundreds and thousands of trees for its mills, and with the paper so much rubbish literature is published for the whimsical satisfaction of human society. Unfortunately, although these industrialists are now happy in this life, by dint of their industrial development, they do not know that they will incur the responsibility for killing these living entities who are in the form of trees. This verse, quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken by Lord Krishna to his friends when he was taking rest underneath a tree after his pastime of stealing the clothes of the gopis, Vastra Harana Lila. By quoting this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us that we should be tolerant like trees and also beneficial like trees, which give everything to the needy persons who come underneath them. A needy person may derive many advantages from trees and also from many animals, but in modern civilization, people have become so ungrateful that they exploit the trees and animals and kill them. These are some of the sinful activities of modern civilization. So I was just, obviously, it's so significant, to understand, the difference between the material and the spiritual, and, creating, and that's the difference. Like one of the things that he's sharing is that, they're really committing sinful activities because they're cutting down these trees, and then they're creating all these books and literature of nonsense that really isn't doing anything to help human society, and to give them some direction of how they can get out of birth and death and how they can actually be happy. I mean, there's just no way to be happy unless you're connected to your original source. And that's, again, like that root image, is that if the roots are cut and you don't water the roots, then the tree withers and dies. And so when we're not connected and constantly pouring into our hearts and constantly sharing that same water or fruit of this tree of devotional service, then we wither up. And so it's really incumbent upon us to really help people understand, what they're actually doing and what the result of what they're doing is going to be. And I just thought such a beautiful, beautiful, and this is only, I don't know how many verses, it's almost done, but, it's just such a beautiful metaphor for us, and realizing how, this tree is not stationary, that it's dynamic, and these words are the same thing, that can change the heart, not just of us, which is what we're trying to do, but other living entities. And so it's so important to offer these fruits, and just imagine yourself, like, I'm a very visual person, and I know that not everybody is a visual person, but, just imagining ourselves, and I'm like dropping flowers all over the place, but just imagining ourselves as this tree, and that we have these beautiful fruits of the heart that we have that's been given to us and woken up, and that's becoming uncovered by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of the Mahamantra, and the mercy of Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya especially, who came to this world, Advaitacharya for calling him, and Lord Nityananda for going out there and willing to face the Jagai Madais and give them some hope, of redirecting them, telling you, you're just wasting your life and your energy, and your focus, just take this Mahamantra, and even though you've hit me, okay, just take the Mahamantra. So even though there's so many challenges that come up, still we go out there and we give and we share and we trust, because we've all had beautiful, wonderful, and amazing, fruitful experiences of being under the shade of this lotus tree, or this, fruit tree of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and we felt that, and so, feeling some level of responsibility and desire, and maybe asking for it, something I've been praying for a lot, is to be more compassionate and to be more tolerant and to be more giving, and not just take like the little boy, because that's also indicated in the purport how of this Chaitanya 946, Chaitanya Lila Brita, that, it's not that you just cut it down to do all these mundane things with it. You're utilizing it, for the benefit of practicing devotional service. So I think I left just a few minutes in case anybody has any thoughts. Or thank you. Well, it was just so inspiring to me because, I just had this one sentence and it's 946 and it just opens up this whole chapter, and it's, it's wow. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna and, Srila Prabhupada, what gift they have given us, And that's the other thing I was thinking about, is that these fruits, you give away all these fruits, but you get so much enlivenment and so much happiness out of it, right? Mother Krishna Priya?